Today I docked up by losing a tampon inside my body for 2 months. Back in December around Christmas I went out and had a pretty wild night. I was on my period and that usually means my drinks hit me harder. I was pretty intoxicated by the time I got home. I had sex with my boyfriend and went to sleep. The next day I started thinking. I asked my guy if he remembered me taking out my tampon before sex. He thought so but wasn't sure. I thought nothing of it. I've never forgotten a tampon and I am almost 40. Over the next few weeks I start smelling weird and having weird discharge. My partner and I had begun having unprotected sex to completion regularly. I've only done this with one other partner before. I had a sort of allergy to his semen and developed bacterial vaginosis. BV smells bad and can give you weird discharge. I assumed this was what was happening with me and my boyfriend. That I must just be kinda allergic to semen and maybe shouldn't let my guy come inside of me. So we went back to using condoms. The symptoms persisted and I would occasionally wonder about that night in December. But I would know, right? Another period came and went. If there was something inside of me it would have come out by now or caused enough problems that I had to see a doctor. My symptoms were just a smelly vag and discharge. I thought it was BV. I started thinking I'll go to the doc soon. 2 nights ago I had severe pelvic pain and it freaked me out. But no insurance can make you put things off. Well, I got my period today. The second cycle since that night around Christmas. I went to the restroom to change my tampon and notice a weird feeling. I pull it out and two come out. It smelled like absolute death. I know it was from December because I was using a cheaper brand of tampons at the time that looked different. I am so embarrassed but at the same time relieved I didn't get TSS and I know now why my body felt off. Ladies, trust your instincts if your insides stink. Please don't be mean. I'm embarrassed enough. I mainly made the post BC I didn't see anything when searching for something like this. I am so embarrassed. Today I docked up by thinking that I was taking a pregnancy test. This happened this morning. I had stayed the night at my boyfriend's dorm, and so we were both crammed on his shitty dorm mattress. The night went by very peaceful. In the morning I woke up, stood up and stretched, and then headed out to the kitchen. I grabbed a glass of water and chugged it, and then checked my period tracker app. The app said I was a couple days late, so I decided to take a pregnancy test. I went to the bathroom, opened up the test, sat down and began to take it. When I looked at the test, the screen was completely distorted. I couldn't read if it was positive or not, so I decided to try another one. I open a new test, sit down, and miraculously, have a lot more pee in me. I start peeing like a madman. It is just flowing out of me onto the stick. It seems never ending. And then suddenly it stops. And I wake up. In my boyfriend's tiny bed. With him sleeping soundly right next to me. A puddle of my piss spreading across the mattress like wildfire. It was on his sheets, comforter, and his shirt that I was wearing. Luckily I was able to wake him and get him to move before it reached him. The level of embarrassment I felt was insane. We took the sheets off and cleaned up, but I didn't have a change of clothes so I had to put on yesterday's dirty clothes and sit in shame. He's been cracking bedwetter jokes all day now and I truly feel like I'll never live this down. Today I docked up by asking my boyfriend's mom to eat my A. So I'm dating my guy for the past 4 months, and due to the fact that I am a mom, when we meet we stay at his place. He lives alone but his, very religious and backwards, parents visit from time to time and stay there for a couple of days. This weekend was not one of them. His parents were supposed to be across the country and not in his house. I just have to say that I haven't met them yet because they would be shocked by my appearance and by the fact that I am a mom. So we had an extra wild night and fell asleep. When I woke up pretty early in the morning, he was not on the bed and I heard the water running in the bathroom so I assumed he was having a shower. Great opportunity to sneak in and have a morning shower treat. I tried to open the bathroom door but to my surprise it was locked. He was probably taking a ST before the shower, I thought. So I knock softly on the door and say, "Hey babes. Who wants to suck my A?" The water stops running, but no response. I continue with the sexiest voice I have. Come on, open the door. I need a good spanking. I want you to turn my red and then eat it. Still no response. That's when I hear the main door open, and to my surprise I see my boyfriend with his dad entering the house with a bunch of bags and boxes in their hands. I turn my head and look at the bathroom door horrified. My stomach dropped. Maya didn't want to be eaten anymore. Never again. The door opens slowly and I see in front of me his mom, her eyes filled with despair and judgment. I'm looking at my boyfriend and he says, "Mom, Dad, this is my girlfriend." My face was burning and I just shook her hand and then went and shook his dad's hand, and then I went into his room and packed my stuff, made an excuse and left. Later I found out that his parents decided to come last minute in order to go to a friend's funeral and didn't say anything to him because they assumed he would be alone. And he had no choice but introduce us. His mother never wants to see me again. And I assume the answer to the question I asked her is no. Lol.
Today I ducked up by making my best friend's house smell like my ass for years. Once, many years ago, I was a young preteen boy at my best friend's house. It was an old house, which had central air ducts in the floor instead of the ceiling. It was a lovely, strange house, with some rooms seeming too small for use and others having no conceivable use at all. It had a root cellar. It had a conical iron staircase. It had terribly small bathrooms. I had to poo, like real bad. I used their guest toilet, and dropped what was without any doubt the largest single turd up till that point in my life, and which would remain so for nearly another decade. It was so big that it stood several inches out of the water, supported only by its own structure jammed into the S-bend. It was so damned long. My diet at the time consisted mostly of corn dogs and peanut butter sandwiches, as is the way of many preteen boys, and as well as being long, the turd was dense and would prove surprisingly impervious to toilet water. At first I was, quite naturally, absurdly proud. I made this. For the first time in my life, but not the last, I legitimately considered going to go get somebody to look at it, just to share in the wonder. Instead, I flushed, and thus came to experience for the very first time in my life, but again not the last, that specific horror which rises with the toilet water. Panic set in, and I began to hop from foot to foot in anticipation of the water spilling over the rim. But thankfully this particular toilet's maker had love for us all and had designed the bowl to hold slightly more than a full tank full of water, and the fill stopped just shy of the rim. I then did the natural and courteous thing, and I grabbed the plunger and went to work hiding the shame of my prideful poo. This is where the Chekhov's gun issue of the diet comes into play, though, and instead of being able to break up and force the turd through, it compacted into the S-bend like a foul cement. The plunger developed a thicker and thicker coating. I was not so much clearing a plugged toilet as I was playing the part of a fecal warlock, a mud mage if you will, brewing a cauldron full of shit soup. Small particles began to break free and steep into the water, which turned more and more opaque. The panic had taken hold of me now, and it would walk me carefully onto the stage to enact the final part of this tragedy, this disaster of Freudian proportions. Being a shy boy in somebody else's home, going through the early stages of body insecurity that comes with the onset of pubescence, and having tried all of the methods life had taught me for coping with this situation, my brain reset itself and told me, well, if at first you don't succeed, try again. So I did. I entered a feedback loop and started at stage 1, and flushed the toilet. Immediately, before the handle of the flush even fully engaged, I knew I had made the mistake of my young life, but it was already too late. I felt through the handle the internal mechanisms lift against the pressure of the water, heard the rush of gravity-assisted water, and looked down at the already full brown bowl just in time to register a moment of stillness. Perhaps the toilet was designed in such a manner so that such events could not happen? I was young and inexperienced, and so much of how the world worked was a mystery to me, that in that moment I felt hope. Hope born of the trust that the adults who run the world knew what they were doing, and was safe in their hands. They had thought of this, obviously, because how could they not have known this problem could occur and then taken steps to ensure it couldn't happen? Then the water began to rise. In the moment that the dark brown liquid crested the rim, as it began to flow down towards the floor of the small half-bath, my childish innocence, and trust for the system my forebears had built, was lost. Life was chaos, and any idea that there may be a plan for us, celestial or human or otherwise, was a lie. Time slowed with the combined existential traumas, and the memory of the shit water hitting the floor and beginning to spread still remains one of my most vivid and crystalline memories, decades later. I didn't scream, or yell, or run. I stood there, transfixed as my own mess turned into a much larger problem. As it spread across the small floor, under the door leading to the hall, and instantly dyed the carpet showing underneath. The water level, having hit resistance, then began to rise. I felt it seeping into my shoes and socks. I could sense the smell of it rising from the level of offensive but acceptable BM to that of an open sewer. And then, for the first time, I noticed the vent. Chekhov's other gun then fired, and I settled my vision on the floor AC vent. Just in time to witness the water sweep over the minor levee of its sides and create, for a few brief and darkly beautiful moments, the feature forever remembered by me but never spoken aloud, as Wonka's chocolate waterfall. I then finally made a noise, not remembered as a sound but as a spasm of my lungs and vocal cords. I made the noise with my spinal column, with the sudden tension in my quads and shoulders which raised me on my toes and outstretched my arms, all outside of the means of concision volition. I wailed like a mother hyena watching a lion begin to charge her pups. It wasn't a human sound. I wasn't a human being. I was an entity of filth and shame and worry and fear and longing for a quick and sudden death. That is my final, lasting memory of the event. The sound and the dread. The aftermath of it all is lost to me. I know that my friend arrived first, and I had just a moment to register his disgust before his parents arrived. It all got cleaned up, the carpet stain came out and there was no lasting water damage. I was able to smell myself every time I came into their house. On warm days, it rode the cool air. On cold days, it assaulted the heated air. The friendship did not last the trauma, and I haven't seen him since high school. Hey, if you want to see more similar videos like this one on daily basis, definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on your notification to see our tomorrow's even better video.